Final score from a cold and kind of weird-looking Maksimir Stadium in Zagreb. Celtic 0, Dynamo Zagreb 0. Another point gained on the road, James. It was a weird one, wasn't it? You get into it with quite a lot of hope, quite a lot of optimism, but quite a flat night overall. But there's a bigger picture at play here. But what's your own initial response to the draw?
Yeah, I mean, your gut on it is, you're looking at the here and now, and that's a game we could and should have won. I think that's quite apparent. Their setup was designed to frustrate. I thought the defence was good, particularly against Kuhn. I thought they defended really well. And just, we didn't create enough in the final third, but they were obviously in the initial third trying to frustrate that. They were a frustrating team. It was a poor pitch, all that kind of stuff. Should still have won the game, no doubt. And you come away going, well, a bit flat. But I think, I was talking to you earlier on about this, that we've been saying, I've certainly been saying for Celtic to grow up over the last couple of years, stop focusing on domestic, focus on European, move through the levels in terms of signings. And to give Celtic their credit, they've done all of that. And I think it's our turn now as fans to go through that growing up as well, where it's a campaign, it's not the game. So a lot of Celtic fans disappointed, a lot of Celtic fans angry. But if you ask every single one of them, do you think we're going to qualify for the playoffs? I don't think anyone would say no. And that is the goal. As much as we love to win every game, we love to play Cinelli football every game, we're in a real run of games at the moment, cup finals coming here and there, and maintaining our stretching our lead in the league, and putting ourselves in a place to qualify for the playoffs. I think we need to look at not even the bigger picture, just the medium-term picture, and say it's working out pretty well.
I think so too, and I think there's a real mix of opinions, certainly in the immediate aftermath of the game, and we've shared those opinions. We were watching it together with some pals, and you kind of discuss on the night, how you're feeling, and it's kind of opportunity lost and all these kind of things. And you can have those feelings in the 90 minutes. I think the game was there for the taking. I thought they were pretty poor. I thought Celtic lacked a cutting edge up front, whilst at the same time their defence was probably the best part of their team. And all in all, that led to the frustration that led to the draw that we got. But then you take a step back from that. You can look at the season as a whole. Celtic are 24 games in. We've lost just one of 24 games, so there's certainly no need to panic. Champions League specifically, we've lost just one game there. Obviously, the Dortmund game is the only game we've lost this season. I know it's not a phenomenal start, but we're chatting just before coming on air. I believe it's Celtic's best run in the European Cup since 1986. 4 games without defeat. Now, it's not a great record, but it is a record, so credit to Brendan Rodgers and the team for picking that up. I think we're going pretty good, pretty well. And I think the fact that we're now on 9 points after 6 games, with a serious chance of qualifying from these last 2 games, Young Boys at home being the big opportunity before we then head to Villa away. I think overall we've got to be pleased with that, haven't we?
Yeah, it's looking at what your actual goal is. I said after the Dortmund game, would everyone be pulling their hair out if, despite the Dortmund result, we qualified at least for the playoffs? And I was told, no, we should be angry about it. I said, well, do you want to get the playoffs or do you want to be angry? And I think it's the exact same here. Rodgers will be looking at the campaign, and what Rodgers' job is to manage the campaign. I don't think anyone can deny he's managing it well, if not very well. When he was an EPL manager, Liverpool and Leicester, whatever, he'd be looking at the fixture list and saying, right, I think we'll win that one, I think we'll draw that one, I think we might lose that one, that's going to be a hard one away, blah, blah, blah. And then working out where they need to improve to challenge for Europe or to win the league or cups or whatever it may be. And in the SPFL, that's not the case. It's win every game, week after week after week. But when we then look at the Champions League, we need to take a view like Rodgers would, or like any manager really would, of an EPL. When teams drop points in EPL, it's not a disaster. And we're moving into a realm above that, albeit maybe less games, but a lot of games nonetheless. But that's a level above EPL, so surely we need to be looking at the games that, right, we think we're going to win that, we think we're going to draw that, that's maybe a loss. Here's where I think we're going to qualify or not qualify, and I think we're in a position to qualify, and for me, that's all that counts.
That's exactly it. So we can look at some of the fun stuff we had under Ange Postecoglou. I remember that campaign where we all raved and it's almost fallen into kind of legend or maybe myth more than legend. But that game against Real Madrid, we played some brilliant stuff for 40 odd minutes against them, and Kalmak hit the post and what could have been. We get pumped 3-0. So for all the fanfare and all the excitement around that, you get nothing. And the question does remain: do you want to play some brilliant, exciting stuff and go nowhere, or do you want to be more pragmatic? Call it more boring if you want, because last night was boring in places, but be a wee bit more boring, but take steps forward and become a more mature side in Europe and a side that has a bit of credibility. I mean, how often have Celtic gone to these kind of sides in Europe, played reasonably well, and come away with no points? Last night you go there, you don't play well, and you still get the points, and it's become a problem for some folk. And I'm struggling to get on board with that, to be honest with you. And I just think there's a mentality historically, or a fragility around Celtic away from home in Europe. And I think slowly but surely we're growing up, to your point. And I just think overall we're heading in the right direction, and there's so much to be positive about. I'm going to read you some quotes from Brendan Rodgers, not word for word, but paraphrasing. But he said it was another positive point for us. Really good on the night from a defensive perspective, but this is quote unquote, our game lacked quality in the final third. He does think we missed an opportunity to win the game, but it's still a really good point for us. And anything, James, that leaves you with a chance of qualification with just 2 games left it must be deemed as Celtic heading in the right direction.
Absolutely. And sure, it was a funny game. I loved the football under Ange. It's probably the most enjoyable football I've ever had as a Celtic fan. It was just seat your pants stuff, and so exciting. I think Ange goes for that last night. Maybe pushes guys up from the back, and we really go for the win. And we could get that win, and we're all going bananas. But it leaves the door open, and I think certainly after about 60 minutes, I had the feeling that Rodgers was absolutely playing for it. We'll see what happens in the first 60, but if it's not working out, then be more cautious than offensive. And that's kind of how it played out. So it is this difference of going and playing handball, and just as a fan, you love it. But you come away from either it's Real Madrid at home or Atletico Madrid away, or so on and so forth. And Rodgers guilty of it in his first tenure as well. I look at Bruges, and they are plodding their way through, as they have done for maybe 7, 8, 9 years now. And they pick up great coefficient points, which gets them in good positions, gets them, good draws and all these things. Maybe less over the new format, but certainly doesn't do them any harm. Does their country a lot of good, because they've just gone slow and steady. And if we go slow and steady and we get to a quarterfinals or a semi-final or something like that, I can't be anything but delighted. So yeah, it's something I need to change in myself, because my instinct is, no, give me football, let me see goals, take risks. But in the reality is, I come away from games on the back of a lot of hidings on that. I don't like that. So let's try and qualify instead.
Yeah, I think the reality is, and I know there's the new format playing its part here, but after 6 games in the group, Celtic are on 9 points now. And last year, after 6 games, did we have 4 points, I think it was. That included the last game win over Feyenoord and a draw with Atletico Madrid. I think that's right, is it? Yeah, I need to double check. But I think there's I watched the interview with Callum McGregor and Greg Taylor in the immediate aftermath of the game. It's on Celtic TV. And they're so disappointed. And I get that. And all things can be true. So, comment from Gypsy King. Gypsy King says, it's a good record, but Zagreb were there for the beating. They were there for the beating, but we didn't manage to get it on the night. But it's still okay. All of these things can be true. We can all be disappointed in last night, and my immediate feeling was disappointment, but it can also still be fine. It can also still be good in the bigger picture. I just think there's lots of things at play, but this is, I don't want to call it a new Celtic. That sounds too dramatic, but Brendan Rodgers, the big gap in Brendan Rodgers' CV is European progression. He's not had a great record in Europe anywhere. Celtic first time around, Liverpool and Leicester. And I think it's the big thing that he's looking to change, moving forward. James, let's go back to the start of the night and look at the lineup. There was a couple of big calls to make, and it's only a couple at this moment in time. Brendan Rodgers, by all accounts, 9 of the team picked themselves, I think. And then I think you've got a wee question mark at left back and a wee question mark as to who joins Callum McGregor and Rio Hatate. I see you shaking your head a bit there. The front three always pick for me.
You're right for eight of the team pick themselves, and the three you mentioned there, the challenge now.
Yeah, the two I mentioned, left back and the other centre mid position. I think Kyogo starts over either. Do you think he made the right call? So Greg Taylor plays, no sign of Baye, doesn't come off the bench, and Bernardo gets another. I actually thought Bernardo had a pretty decent game overall, done very well, and he's, I don't know what it was, I'll check, an hour or so. Do you think he got the team right, first of all?
I mean, if he wanted to not lose the game, then you can't deny he got the team right. For me, Taylor's always going to be a challenge in Europe. I thought he was frustrating again. I thought he was miles away from his man at times. The big chance they had, Casper tipped over the bar. Everyone I recommend, look at that back again and look how far away your left back is from the attacker, from the right winger. It's criminal as a fullback. Covering a guy who's covered instead of covering a guy who should be covering. I don't want to make it a jump on Taylor. I think Baye gives you more positivity. But were we looking for more positivity, or were we looking for a slow and steady? So if you look slow and steady, probably Taylor. I thought he was a bit more effective than Kyogo when he came on, but Kyogo wasn't getting any service. He was making the moves, but getting no service because everyone was getting suffocated at that final third. I thought Rio was maybe as bad as he's been in a Celtic jersey, and it's the consistency he's got to tighten up on. You know, stray passes that are 5 yards away from the stuff that is well within his ability. And I agree with you. I thought Bernardo was actually very unlucky to come off in 65 minutes. I wouldn't necessarily have taken him off. I'd have taken Rio off and kept Bernardo on. I thought he was doing perfectly fine.
Yeah, do you know, sometimes managers seem to they almost fall into their own trap, if that's the right word. You know, it's like, do you know what, I always freshen up on 60, 65, 70. So even though you're doing well, Bernardo, that's always the plan, and we're going to freshen up. Sometimes just keep the guy on that's doing well. There's a lot to be said for that at times. You know, if you don't need to change it,
yeah.
Would you?
I think they needed the energy in the midfield. I think changing the midfield at that juncture was right, but not both. And we don't usually change both. It's usually one or the other. It's not usually both. So it's a strange move. Don't know if there's legs to be thinking of there as well. But I would just have brought McCowan on, I think, to give us that wee bit of energy, a wee bit of drive. I think he did that, but I think he'd have kept Bernardo on with it as well.
Yeah, and I do think like McCowan gave us something. We'll maybe catch back up on that. We've jumped a wee bit ahead of ourselves in terms of the game itself. But first half, no real cutting edge, and I suppose that was the theme of the night. Soulless stadium. I mentioned at the top of the piece. Soulless big stadium. You've got that whole stand, and we were chatting today to someone in the chat is that it's been condemned, it's unsafe or whatever it is. So there's no fans in what is one of their biggest stands in the ground. You've got Celtic fans behind a goal, but seemingly miles away, and then you've got the home fans up at the top end of the ground. It just seemed a bit soulless. It didn't feel like a Champions League night. It almost felt like a stadium that had been, you know, closed in certain quarters because of crowd behaviours or almost behind closed doors. It was weird. It looked like a fresh night, a cold night. It didn't feel Champions League, and I wonder. And I know that it's the players' job to respond to that and play in whatever environment. I don't think that's what Champions League football is. I thought it was a really poor spectacle from that point of view. But that said, you know, when it comes down to the football stuff, half-time stats, Celtic, I think, had 68% of the possession. But possession, like a lot of these stats, don't really matter unless you're putting the ball in the net. And we didn't really get close to that in that first half.
No, there's no shot on target. No saving the goalie until McCowan came on. And there was a shot in 69 minutes. So there was no penetration. And there's a lot of the same stuff, you know, trying to do the same stuff. I thought they were really good at just being very messy, very scrappy. We couldn't get any flow together, but that's our job then, to show a bit of variation, show a bit of invention, show a bit of bravery. Maybe they also had the eye in the back door. You know, I'd like to score, but I'd rather not lose a goal than score a goal. That seemed like the overarching theme. If you were to give one to that team last night, they were more concerned about keeping a clean sheet than scoring a goal, and that's what gets you a 0-0 draw. It's not great to watch, but is it an important point in the grand scheme of things? I think so.
Yeah. I put a tweet out last night. Let me tell you what I said. Just asking what was the overall assessment. Is it a sign of how far we've come that we're disappointed with a clean sheet and a point away from home, or should we have let the handbrake off a bit and gone for all 3 points? And there's various responses. Liam's a Celtic author, pretty well respected. He says that clean sheet away in the Champions League is a bit of a red herring. This was a poor side who had players missing. We played with no urgency and we were slacking possession. A golden chance to put qualification to bed and we missed it. But we should still get the points we need. Let me see, there's a few more. Michael Kelly, I'd have been happy with a draw before that. The win was there, but we've conspired to lose games like that before. No easy away games in the Champions League, and certainly shows our progress when we're a wee bit deflated. And let me see the last one. From Dyson's Da, who's a part of the show. He says, if we're serious about moving forward in the tournament, we need to win games like that. Yes and no, because it looks very much like we still can and still will move forward in the tournament, but I get the overall point. If we want to, again, restore our credibility in Europe as a genuine Champions League side at the moment, Celtic, I know we're in the Champions League, of course we are in that tournament, but we're kind of status-wise, I'd say we're somewhere between Champions League and Europa in terms of recent results and performances before this season. If we want to be taken seriously, and if we want to get to the knockouts, not just to be there, but to genuinely have a chance of progression, I dare say you do need to show up better against Dynamo Zagreb, and there's teams around us, teams that we aspire to be like, that would go and take care of that one last night. So what do you think? I know we're going back a wee bit to some of the stuff at the start, but what do you think?
It depends who you aspire to be like. You know, the Ajax, Bruges, Porto, Benfica, maybe with the exception of Benfica, do they all go there to pick up a crucial point and a clean sheet, or do they go there gung-ho and try and win? So you need to be honest with yourself about who your peer group is, and I think certainly 3 of the teams there are what we should be aspiring to, because they are solid, steady, regular Champions League participants and progressors, and we are not. So we've got to get to that stage before we get to the next stage. It's not fun. It's quite painful, pragmatic football, but it's just part of the development and the progress. I think we've just got to stick with it and be patient as fans.
I think we've also got to look at the fact that, as disappointing as I thought Zagreb were, so I don't know how much we can buy into the missing players thing or not. I don't know enough about them as a side. You know, the manager said there was 8 first-team players missing from their squad. They had 14 players available. Without knowing too much, I don't have the time or inclination to study Dynamo Zagreb in great detail, but maybe they were really stretched. I believe the guy that played left-back very well against Nicholas Kuhn is more naturally right-sided, for example. But you made the point that could play into his favour because Kuhn was coming inside a lot on his... Yeah, so coming into his stronger right-hand side, for example. But they've got 8 points, so they're no mugs. They've picked up 8 Champions League points. Now look at Slovan Bratislava. We took care of them very comfortably in Matchday 1, and they're a lesser light, certainly in terms of this season's competition. They're not there to be taken too seriously. Zagreb have got 8 points, as I say, and you know they've had their tough results like us. They get beat by Dortmund, albeit only 3-0. They got hammered on Matchday 1, 9-2 by Milan, and they've recovered. And then some. So there's enough about Zagreb. It's a hostile place to go to. As I say, it's not a nice environment to go to. There's nothing appealing from a playing point of view either. I just think you need to give them a wee bit of credit as well. So you're right. At the moment, obviously, we always, watch things through a Celtic prism, but we've not earned the right to say, well, we'll just go and take care of Zagreb and teams like that yet. We're just not there. Maybe we'll get there, and maybe this time next year we're stronger again. But right now, we need to accept that we've been an also-ran in recent years in this competition.
Yeah, that's it. It's development, but there's potential that they caught us out last night in their game plan because we didn't have to come out. They absolutely did. That was a must-win game for them. They're probably not going to pick up any more points in the Champions League, and will be very lucky to qualify for playoffs. So maybe Rodgers was expecting a wee bit more, attacking play from them, which would have left spaces for us to exploit, and it never happened. And I really don't understand why. I mean, if Celtic Twitter was going mad last night, what was Zagreb Twitter doing? Because they've kind of blown their best chance of getting in the playoffs by being a frustrating, spoiling, negative team and playing on the break, which didn't really get them anywhere. So yeah, maybe we've been caught a bit flat-footed that they were so defensive because they certainly shouldn't have been, and it's worked out that it's just we cancelled each other out and nullified the result. But strange approach from Zagreb. I know the manager's under real pressure there, but all the more reason for them to go and get a win last night and try and come out and play attacking football. So Yeah, I think we were looking to exploit spaces that never appeared.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. So my mistake on Matchday 1, they lost to Bayern 9-2, but they play Milan in their last game at home, and they play Arsenal in their next game. So these fixtures happen now towards the end of January. So over a month away, that we'll need to wait to see how it all plays out. But based on where Zagreb are at just now, every chance they're getting 0 points from their final 2 games, and they'll finish on the 8 points they've now got. Surely at some point, and Brendan Rodgers must have been having those thoughts based on everything going on just now. At some stage in the game, whether it's from the first whistle or at half time or 70 minutes in or the last 10 or whatever, they'll need to come at us. And they never ever did. They created a couple of half chances. There was that one notable save that Kasper Schmeichel made from the header, and very little else. Quite night for goalies all in all.
Yeah.
And Brendan Rodgers can't really account for that. You know, he'd be right to expect them to come out and whilst they never parked the bus, they didn't offer much at all. They just stayed very rigid and in shape. And maybe again, there's an inevitability that the result ends up in a stalemate based on that. And you know, if their manager is under pressure, great way to relieve that pressure is get the one at home that will see you almost guaranteed a place in the knockout stages. So a bit confusing all round, but I think it does explain a wee bit of how the game played out. James, across that second half, again, you know, nothing of great note. Alistair Johnson goes off at half time. I believe it's a hip abductor issue, something like that. Brendan Rodgers has indicated he thinks he'll be okay, but we'll wait to hear further news on that. Tony Ralston comes in at that point, and then you've got some further changes across the half. So Engels, McCowan, and then slightly later, Ida and Forrest all come into the fray. And I do think, look, McCowan added a bit of energy. He'll be buzzing at making, I think that's just his second Champions League appearance. And I think he's earned these minutes on the park there. You know, there's a case that he should maybe even be starting some of these games. But he did come on and almost instantly had an impact. You know, he just brought an energy, and he got that first shot on goal that Celtic had been missing for most of the night. And at that point, it gave us a bit of a spark and a bit of hope that we were going to unlock things.
Yeah, we needed that, you know, and I thought that was a decent tactical move from the manager to bring that on and just liven things up a wee bit. But the reason it didn't get as far as we hoped is because they didn't change at all. You know, they played a 5-3-2, and everything was between their 5 and their 3. So McCowan's energy got to the edge of the box for that shot. Decent enough save from the goalie, decent enough shot from McCowan as well. But it wasn't like we were getting, you know, rapidly and regularly in behind the lines, because they were just, I thought they were very disciplined. If you want to give them some credit, they were very disciplined in the back line. I thought the subs were, you know, certainly McCowan was a good move, and latterly, I like to be doing stuff coming on. I thought the subs were positive. It wasn't like the subs were saying, right, we're just going to, you know, hunker down here. We were kind of keeping it the same, but with a bit more energy. And I think McCowan really gives you that. I certainly wasn't disappointed he didn't start, because I just think the way the team's been playing, you're a wee bit more, you've got him as the impact off the bench. I think he's a great player, and he'll be a great player for Celtic, and there might be a time when he is going to start. I mean, Rio turning in that performance last night, it certainly asked the question. Obviously, Sunday's cup tied McCowan, and I don't see Engels and Bernardo starting together, so I'm going to answer my own question. Rio probably starts on Sunday, but there's a chap at the door for him that he'll need to buck up his ideas if he wants to be retaining his place. McCowan's right down his neck.
The big frustration with Rio, and we were chatting it through last night, is that we all know what a talent he can be on his day. He's a phenomenal talent. He's got all the tools in his locker. He's had some exceptional moments in a Celtic shirt. He had one just a week ago tonight at Pittodrie, where he's one of the few players in the park that could do what he done and scored the goal to make sure we had a 1-0 win and brought all 3 points down the road. We've seen big moments against Rangers. We've seen some class moments in Europe. But it's the inconsistency that's a frustration. I'm a massive fan, but it's that inconsistency which really gets to you, because if he was on top form last night, you've got every chance of opening some doors, because he did find himself at different points in good spaces in the final third. And to go back to Brendan Rodgers' quote, so he says our game lacked quality in the final third, which we can all agree it did. We've seen it. But what do you put that down to? What can that be? Can that just be the fact that any given footballer can have an off night, whether it's Nicholas Kuhn, who's been the star man, Kyogo, who's a striker that can score goals like he done against Hibs on Saturday, Daiz Maeda, who's got moments of magic and moments of madness. Is it just a case of on the night it wasn't clicking, or is there anything more to it?
It's never one thing, is it? There's some multiple of things. I think if you want to take Daiz in isolation, I think he's off form. Has been since he came back from the international break. Just plays a lot of football, intensely, and isn't getting the break because we don't have that reliable backup left winger. And I think that's something we need to address in January. Kuhn was just extremely well marshalled. I'd have put the left back as man of the match. I thought he played him fantastically well. Kuhn's got enough trickery in his pocket to vary that up a wee bit, but it's not like he had 8, 9, 10 chances to go to his man. He maybe had 4, 5, 6, that kind of thing. So not enough to really vary it. He's going with his strongest suit, which is trying to get inside his left. And he did get inside him a couple of times, just the shot didn't present itself or wasn't quite good enough. So there's that. They're defending, a couple of other guys off form, a bit of nervousness in the Celtic team. With those players having gone through the Dortmund result, that will be in the back of their mind somewhere. That yes, we want to score, but we definitely don't want to lose goals here, and we don't want to end up in a collapse. So they played it maturely and cautiously and boringly, and it's crap to watch, but it gets you places. That's modern football.
It is. You mentioned the left back who had a very decent game, Pierre Gabriel, or Peter Gabriel, as he's known here in the UK. But he did have a good game, and it just made it tough for Kuhn. Kuhn's been our shining light and the guy that we've looked to more often than not this season, and it just wasn't to be. Gypsy King, obviously a man after my own heart, he says give Yang a chance. Totally agree. I think Yang is a guy with something to offer, and if Daiz Maeda is a wee bit off form, I know James Forrest is a guy that gets a nod just now. Why not give Yang a chance? We've got 4 games between now. 4 games, 5 games, 4 games between now and the end of the year. Sunday's Cup final, then 3 league games. I think there's got to be a chance for Yang in there somewhere. James, I want to finish things on a positive, but I think overall it's been mostly positive whilst looking at some of the issues within the game. Callum McGregor made his 100th European appearance for Celtic. Brilliant record and credit to him. It takes real discipline, character, longevity to be able to do that. Some guys are lucky enough to pull on a Celtic shirt in any competitive game once. To do it 100 times in Europe, credit to Callum McGregor. Well done to him for that. Kasper Schmeichel, we touched on him briefly. I suppose a typical Celtic goalkeeping performance in that you've got large spells with nothing to do, then you need to stay very switched on when you're called upon. I thought he made a very sharp save from that header. That's now his 15th clean sheet in 24 games. He's a massive part of all the good things that Celtic are doing at this moment in time. It's another away clean sheet following the 0-0 each with Atalanta. And as we covered, it's only 1 loss in 6 Champions League games for Celtic. There's lots going on Celtic-wise just now. There's obviously the huge matter of the Cup final on Sunday. We're going to catch that on Friday, James. We're going to do a preview for that then. But to stay with the European stuff, we now know we've got the game against Young Boys. I think it's the 22nd of January at Celtic Park. That's the biggie. And Villa, the hope is when that comes around 1 week later, that's bonus territory. You can go and enjoy yourself at Villa Park. But what's your thoughts? What do you see in the final 2 games?
So I think you're talking to a friend of ours, Michael, this morning, that the statisticians out there have put it that Celtic have got a 72% chance of auto qualification, not playoffs, auto qualification. I think I need to see numbers on that because it sounds far fetched. So we win these 2 games.
Yeah, based on his winning the last 2 games, there's a 72% chance of top 8.
And I think a lot of teams around us would have to not win their 2 games to give us that chance. The 15 points is enough to go through. So there's that. The chances of playoff qualification must be in the 90s, I would imagine. So that's obviously a positive. The PLC will be very happy with the playoffs next week game at Parkhead. Some coefficient points. You'll maybe get through that way, and then you're into the knockouts then. So it took me a bit of time to get it into my head last night, and I'm sure a lot of other fans are the same. But once you see the cold hard facts of it all, it's a good point. It's another positive Celtic away in Europe, not getting a tanking, and puts in a good place to qualify. So yeah, I'm happy overall.
Yeah, and I think if we get, what we're on 9 points, eh? So if we get that win, are we on 9? Are we on 8?
We're on 9 and these puts in 15th win or two.
Got you. Good job, I know my stuff. But if we get that win at home to Young Boys, then you're in an exceptional position and one that you would very much have taken at the start of things. So, as I say, myself very much included in this, it's understandable to get annoyed during the game, during the 90 minutes, and in the immediate aftermath. It's all right to be disappointed at maybe not getting the win against Bruges, even though they were a good side. It's absolutely understandable to be disappointed at getting hammered against Dortmund. But overall, and you made the point, James, it's the way that the manager has managed this campaign. He's taken it as a collective, knowing that I'll pick a couple of points up here, I'll get a draw there, we could possibly get a win there. And they've looked at the bigger picture, and I think last night absolutely falls into that. You could, emotion can cloud judgment in football and in lots of other places. And the manager could have got emotional on the night, like Ange can, in terms of what's going on in the park. And maybe after an hour just thought, I'm going to go for this here. I'm going to keep Kyo going, and I'm going to throw Ida up on top with him, and I'm going to sacrifice the midfielder or whatever. And really gone for it and lost 1 or 2-0. And then all of a sudden you go into Young Boys with real pressure on your shoulders. I think, yeah, and I think there'll always be pressure, and there will be pressure come the 22nd of January at Celtic Park. But it's a healthy pressure. It's a healthy test of this Celtic side, who all of a sudden are in the driving seat and they've put themselves within a real chance. James, before I get your final comments, big thanks to Scott, who's just made a big contribution to the show. We really appreciate it. And the support of everyone else who's continuing to join us here on the live show. James, as I say, loads of big stuff to look forward to for Celtic, certainly in Europe, and that's on the back burner just now until January. We've got the preview, as I say, for Sunday coming up to on Friday, so we'll catch all of that then. But in the meantime, your final thoughts on the draw, the nothing each draw, not the one each draw with Dynamo Zagreb.
He said it was 1-0. Final thoughts. Boring, positive, qualification, focus. So, to say at the top, I'd love to see us win 5-0 every game. Of course we would, but we've got to take the context of the run of fixtures we're in as well. Real hard games. We've been to Tynecastle one, we've been to Pittodrie one, we've been scoring buckets of goals. We're in a cup final on Sunday. We could be sitting with silverware. We're on the precipice of qualifying for the playoffs of this new format Champions League. You can't look at all of that and not say that is a positive situation to be in. So once you've had a bit of time to digest the game, of course, but this morning, just look at that and go, right, it's going well. And who knows where we go in that tournament this year, but it then gives you a foundation to build on next year and the year after, and so on and so on. And I think we're really starting to put foundations in place that make it sustainable, that we can keep getting to these places and keep improving year on year. But who knows where we go this year as well.
Exactly that. We're in the midst of what could yet be a very special campaign for Celtic. As you say, there's a big chance of silverware just a few days from now. When did Celtic last go into Christmas and New Year with feasible hopes of qualifying to the next stage of the Champions League? The new format plays its part, but Brendan Rodgers and the players have played a massive part in that, and they deserve all the credit going. I mentioned before, 24 games for Celtic this season, just 1 defeat. Just think about that again, 24 games and 1 defeat. It's very consistent, it's very impressive, and there's lots to look forward to moving forward. James, thanks for joining us here on this one. Thanks, as I mentioned, to the various guys that continue to support us and join us here on the live shows, and those who continue to listen to the Celtic Exchange podcast. We'll be back on Friday with the big counter to kick off ahead of Sunday's Cup final. We're just trying to fine-tune the time, but we will post that on our social media, so keep an eye on that. But in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday night. We'll see you all again very soon.